Hello and welcome to Andy's Shed Live for this Sunday the 11th of April 2021. Hello there, how are you? And welcome to the show for this fairly sunny actually Sunday afternoon. It's not been bad today. A big hello to everybody who is already with us in the chat. I'm just looking at who we've already got today. I'm over this side today. Dominic's here, Jimmy's here, Wesley Pagden's here, and various other people are here as well. Fat Hobbit's here as well, and various other people. I know there are 9 people watching this already, which is quite a lot for us. So yeah, welcome to the show, everybody. There's quite a bit of lag on this tonight as well. So if you say something in the chat and I don't respond to it for like 30 seconds or something, it is because there's approximately 30 seconds between me doing it and you seeing it. So there's quite a bit of a lag on here today, so it's a little on the slow side, but we will do our best. We'll do as best with what we've got, as they say. It's an interesting one tonight. It's a very, very vintage episode of Andy Shed Live tonight. It's all about old stuff tonight. And I've done my shoulder as well, so I can't pick up anything heavy. I don't know what I've done to it, but my shoulder really aches today. Aches and pains, you know, aches and pains. But yeah, so we're going to carry on anyway. Business as usual. Remember, if you want to know more about the show, if you want to catch back episodes and things, then you can do here. It's at andyshed.coldpress.net. That's our website. If you want to get in touch with us, there's a contact us page and everything on there as well. So that's the place to get in touch and stuff. So that's that. And remember, we're also starting up this shop thing as well, where you can get various telephone bits and that. It's in the process of being built at the moment, but you can already buy stuff from it. It's andysemporium.coldpress.net. That is the place to go for that. And if you want to support us on Patreon, and we are just starting to do Patreon exclusive content as well. There's blog posts and things that you'll see throughout the week if you join us on Patreon for what is basically about £1 a week. Then you can join us on Patreon and support the show, and it really is a big help, anybody who does join us on Patreon. And this is the address to do that. It's patreon.com/Andy Shed. That's patreon.com/Andy Shed. And there's already a few people on there, and you get your name on the end credits of the show as well if you join us on Patreon, so that's good, isn't it? Right, how are we doing in the chats? Dominic says, now the shops are reopening tomorrow. I hope those telephone converters just go out and buy a lamp. And Wesley says, take some ibuprofen, Andy. Yeah, ibuprofen, does that do aches and pains, does it? Yeah. I'll take a large gin later or something. I think that'll probably solve it, won't it? Right, this is weird having this chat up here rather than, I mean, to you it's always there, but what I look at is normally down there, and tonight it's up here. And it's further away as well, so aches and pains and bad eyesight as well. Fat Hobbit says it could be a frozen shoulder. It's blooming frozen everything living up here on top of this hill, I'll tell you, Fat Hobbit. Dominic says, I finally got a dial label printed off of my red 8722 with Cambridge 311488, and I've also found one of those small GPO personal directory booklets. Cool, brilliant. That's rather good. Everything's coming together with that then. You're getting there with that, it sounds like. We've got all sorts on for you today, but the main thing that we're going to be talking about today on the show is this. Hang on. This. Or perhaps this. Or maybe even this. Yes, like buses. They come along in threes. Can I move this camera so you can see? Or no, probably can't actually. Yes, they all come along in threes. Right. I've got 3 telephones here. I could do with moving that camera because these were all bought basically as Candlestick phones. They were all bought. Put those two the other way around. All also bought with the same problem. Right, I'm going to see if I can move this other camera so you can actually see what I've got here. Right. Now this is likely to be problematic. Right, let me do it this way. Right. If that camera would sit there somewhere, and trouble is there's nothing to clip it on just there. Right, hang on a minute. I'll use the handset of a phone. Quite a handy thing to keep a camera to sometimes. Right. Now, can I point it down? That's it. That's better. Oh, and blimey, you'll be able to see what I'm doing as well. Right, hang on. I've got to get it in focus before I can put it live and show you what's actually on it. Right, it's in focus now. Maybe you can now see. Right, here we are then. Right, it's National Candlestick Day. Did you know? Right, so here is 3 Candlestick telephones. Right, now there are differences to these. Can anybody spot the differences? As yet, there are. There's so much stuff on this desk. Can anybody spot the differences there? Dominic says that's a rather odd dial label for that dial 10. Yeah, I'll come to that in a minute, Dominic. Right, right. We've got 3 candlesticks here, and if you look at the transmitter heads on them, they all appear to be telephone 150s. Alright, but they're not. A telephone 150, so I'm told, so I'm led to believe, basically always has either a dial on it or some kind of mounting for a dial. So, having said that, this is a telephone 150 because it's got a dial, yeah? Okay. This is a telephone 150 because it's got a dial blank. It's got a mounting for a dial. You could put a dial on there, but it's got a blank in place that they just use as a number thing. But this one has got, which way I'll move it to get it in shot that way. This one, look, has got nothing on the base at all. And also, if you look at them side by side, if I put them actually side by side, now this may not be obvious on the shot. That one, it looks weird because it's further away. But if I can put them side by side like that, and then you can't see them, of course. Hang on a minute. Let me make the chat disappear for a minute. like so. Right, you'll now see a difference to them. These two are actually the same, but can you see this one's shorter? Yeah? And the reason it's shorter is because the base is slightly flatter. Okay? So it's just a slightly flatter base. And that's probably the reason it's shorter. Okay? So this one is not a Tele 150. This one is actually a telephone number 2 that somebody has put a Tele 150 receiver head onto. And we can prove this. We can prove what it is by looking on the top of the phone, just here, because just here there should be markings on either side of the phone. So without further ado, we will hang on, let me get this right. Without further ado, I will pick up this camera that I moved and I'll bring it over here and we'll look at this first one. Now this is the one that is claiming not to be a 150, and if I can focus this, the problem is this camera's got lights in it that cause havoc normally. Right, if I can get that in there, then show that. Right, there you go, there's the first one. So that says E24 235. Can you see that on there? E24 235 on that side. So the way I understand it, that means it's made in 1924. If I've understood how these codes work right. And on the other side, look, it clearly says number 2. So that is definitely a telephone number 2. There's nothing crossed out there. Okay? Right, so that's a telephone number 2. So I'm going to put that one at the back here a minute. The next one we're going to come to, yeah, is PL30, it says on it, 234, which means it was made in 1930, I believe. Okay, 30, 234. And on the other side, it's a Tele 150. There is no doubt about that. And Tele 150s came out around about 1930-ish. Can't remember exactly, but that's a telephone 150. So there's no doubt about that one, what that one is either. Okay. Right. So the final telephone 150, the one without the dial. Now, is what we're looking for. And this one is E24. So, does that mean that was made in 1924? Well, yes, it does, because a lot of Tele 150s were converted from earlier phones, and this is no exception, because if I turn this around, can you see the number 2? It was a telephone number 2, this, and it's been crossed out and 150 put in its place. Yeah, can you see that? So that's a telephone number 2 that's been converted into a telephone 150. The other 150 is that this one is actually genuinely a 150. It's never been anything else because it was made in 1930. And this telephone number 2 here, this one, is still a telephone number 2. And actually, if we look at the size of those now, if I can focus the camera, get those two the same distance from the camera. Yeah. One is slightly taller than the other of those. This one is slightly taller. Yeah. And that is the 150 that's been converted from a telephone 2. Okay. But I think the conversion has involved a new base and a new pedestal because it's taller. It's the same height as this Tele 150. And if you look at the type of the pedestal, you can see how it kind of has that curve on it like that. It's very, very similar. Yeah? But look at the other one, this one here, and it's flatter. Can you see that? How it's flatter? So I don't know if that was just something to do with the manufacturers or if that was a difference between the 2s and the 150s. But it is certainly different, and the fact that is flatter, that telephone number 2, that is what makes the height difference at the top. You see? Are you with that? So, what's happened to these phones? Well, basically they had all been converted to lamps. Now, I've altered bits on the transmitter heads of a couple of these because they'd been drilled and messed with to turn them into lamps. And I can show you the bits I took off. Like this thing I took off. This was a transmitter head that I took off. That's lost all its internal fittings, but it's had a thing put through here, you see. A brass thing, and that was to screw a light fitting onto the top of there. So that had a big hole drilled in it, so I've done away with that one. This one had also been damaged. It had not been drilled, but it had been damaged further up the front. The actual front of this one, the actual spit cut piece had been drilled, and as they drilled through the spit cup, they damaged part of the metal clip that holds the spit cup on, so I've had to take this back off as well. And again, this back had got no internal gubbins in it. It was, however, full of plaster of Paris, which tells you how well these conversions are done when they do them. Really, not well at all. So that is pretty much how you tell what you've got. Right. Let's have a look what people are saying on the chat. Well, it says there's a hole in the receiver hook on one of those. Yeah, Wesley, that's where that was a candlestick, that one. The one that wasn't drilled was this one. And what they did, hang on, you can't see it, can you? There you go, you can see it now. The one that wasn't drilled was this one. And what they did, they actually drilled the brass here. And to me, this is a better way of doing it if you must do it. They drilled the brass here and put the lamp fitting into here. So all I had to do was unscrew the lamp fitting, but it does now mean I've got a hole there. So what I will do eventually is get a bit of brass, tap it, screw it into that hole there, and then file it flat so it kind of fills the hole up. But these are the original cords, possibly, for the phone, and these are what they were using for the lamp. These tiny little wires had got 240 volts going through them. So you see, not only are these conversions generally done badly, they're also downright dangerous. And the way that you turn the lamp on and off on this was that you lifted the hook switch, because the 240 volts, believe it or not, ran through the hook switch. So that's the candlesticks. That's the 3 candlesticks that we've got here. I'm just trying to get my camera back in the right place. There we go. Yeah, that's the 3 candlesticks now that we've got. And the way you spot a genuine GPO candlestick is these markings up here. They must be stamped with these markings. You know, like a fraction on one side, like something over something, and then the telephone number on the other side. They can be on either side, they can be either way around, but it's got to say the telephone number 1, telephone number 2, telephone 150, something like that. If it doesn't say anything like that on them, then they are not genuine GPO phones. And there are some very, very, very good repro ones out there. I've got one. I'm going to be doing a video about these phones soon. Oh, this camera bit it's moved on its own accord. I'm going to be doing a video about these phones, a special video about these, where we'll show you the differences, and I'll show you one of the repro ones, one of the fake ones as well. And the fake one is very, very, very good for what it is. And actually the fake one is built quite well. It came with a job lot of phones. I was going to get rid of it because it was a fake, but it's actually so well built I've kept it. Dominic says, did the candlesticks originally have all the brass parts painted over, or were they always polished? No, Dominic, this is a thing that people do wrong when they restore them these days. There was never any exposed brass on any GPO phone as far as I'm aware. The only exception to that may possibly have been some of the very early wooden wall-mounted phones. I'm not sure about them, they may have been an exception. But certainly on candlesticks, everything was black. All the brass bits were blackened on candlesticks, so absolutely everything, like these handset pieces and the kind of necks on them, everything was black. Now I don't know how they did it. I don't know if they chemically blackened the brass somehow, or if they painted it. I'm not quite sure what they did, but it is certainly better now basically to paint it. If you paint it gloss black, you will not be far off. Interestingly, of these two that have come recently together are sort of gloss black. The finish on them, which could be the original, is gloss black. You know, the stems and that is gloss black. But this one that I've had a while, this one, it's not gloss, it's kind of slightly textured. It's like a kind of crinkly paint on it. So I don't know if this is original or not. It's a very good paint job if it's original. So I'm wondering if this one's been recoated, because this one does not feel smooth like the other two are. So there's something a bit odd going on there. Michael T has joined us. He says, "Hi Andy, I'm sure I have early memories of Dad speaking on one of those, and this is the 1980s. Yeah, you could well do. I went to a school called the Bolsover School. The Bolsover School was on 3 sites. One was the Moorfield site, which is still there. There was the Castle site, which I don't think that's a school anymore, and there's Welbeck site, which I went to, which has now been knocked down and a doctor's surgery built on it. And the Welbeck site, they had an internal telephone system, and they certainly, in some of the classrooms, had candlestick telephones on the internal telephone system for the school. I can't tell you what sort they were, but they were certainly very old and very crusty. So they probably were, you know, genuine to sort of 1920s or 1930s. This one, interestingly, has a relatively modern, if I put it in front of that camera, has a relatively modern dial label on it. It has a sort of 700, a 706 rather than 746 style dial label on it. So this one, assuming that is genuine to the phone, this one probably survived in service into the late 50s or even into the 60s, I would guess, with that. So yeah, I wouldn't be totally surprised if there was one still in service in the 80s. Wesley says the conversion of the phones was downright dangerous then to lamps as well as sacrilege. Yeah, Wesley, it was basically. I can't say any more than that about it, but yeah. Dominic says, interestingly, BT made some replica candlesticks with the modern Dial 21 fitted to it for sale in the BT shops, I think. Yeah, they did. It was part of their special range telephones that you could buy in the 1980s. They're so wrong. Yeah, that they are nothing at all like the originals, basically. Absolutely nothing at all. If you want to buy a modern phone that is like the originals, you're better to buy one of the Indian copies, which mechanically is very like the originals. Those things from the 80s weren't. Apart from anything else, I don't think they had a bell set. I think they got a bell somehow built into them, I think. Jimmy says that's where Downton Abbey went wrong. They had brass on theirs. Did they? Did they have brass on their telephones in Downton Abbey? That's one of those prop houses getting it wrong then, isn't it? That what we were talking about last week. Wesley says the reproduction ones used to be sold in the early 80s by a company called Conversation Pieces. I think it was the gentleman who later became Telephone Lines in Cheltenham. Not sure if it's the same guy or not, I don't know. Now those ones, the Conversation Pieces phones, they were closer to the original. They weren't the ones with the Dial 21s on. They were closer to the original, and some people say those Conversation Pieces phones did use some original candlestick parts that they found somewhere. So they are closer to being the original, but not quite. Dominic says that style of dial label was introduced roughly about 1962-63, I think. That's that style there. When was the next one introduced then, Dominic? The one that's got a sort of line across the middle? Because that one, there's another version that has a line across the middle, which is similar to that one. I know that's a funny one, but similar to that. and it normally has operator 100 in the middle section. But see, that one's got no middle section on it. So when was that one with the middle section that normally has operator 100 introduced? When did that one come out? Because I always associate this one with the early 706s, and the one with the bit across the middle with 746s. I don't know if I'm right or wrong in doing that. Michael T says, when Dad got the answer he wanted from the company he was speaking to, he'd say, much obliged to you. So he talked like he was on the phone as well. Well, he said, did they cannibalise phones which would probably have sold well nowadays to make the conversation pieces ones? No, I don't think they did. I think they found stocks of bits. I think the GPO had still got stock of Candlestick bits somewhere, and they found. And I think that is basically how they did it. I believe the conversation pieces ones date from the 70s. I believe. And I think they were done for some sort of anniversary or something originally. Don't quote me on this, I may be wrong, but I think they kind of date from the 70s. And if you think about it, there would have been probably quite a lot of Candlestick parts around. If you think about a Tele 150 dating from the 30s, and that being done, let's say it was done in 1980. So 1930, 1940, 50, 60, 70, 80. That was only 50 years after the Tele 150s came out. Now, go from when the 746 came out, let's call it 1970, although it was about 67, 68, let's call it 1970. 1980, 1990, 2000, 2010, 2020. And we know how many 746 bits and pieces there are around. So, again, it's only 50 years. So, there would have been parts around then because there was only a 50-year gap, which actually, in terms of telephones, is not very long at all. So, what we think of as being relatively modern 746 now is the same age that a Candlestick phone was in about 1980. How weird is that? Can't quite get my head around that. Dominic says, I think the later one came about in the mid-60s or possibly in 67, 68. This is the dial label. When the 746s were introduced, I think for the first few years, the 706s used the older red and black label. You could be right there, Dominic. I wouldn't like to say one way or the other. I think you could be right. And Jimmy says, my aunt had a phone early to mid-60s. The label didn't have the operator number on it. So that would back up what Dominic says. So we think the one with operator 100 across the middle, of that extra section across the middle, we think that came about with the 746s then, in around about 67, 68-ish. Before that, they had that. Which sounds reasonable to me. I'll go along with that. That sounds reasonable to me. So, what are we going to do with all these Candlesticks? Well, they all need restoring. They all need restoring quite badly. You may have noticed there's no cords on anything. That's because I took most of the cords off. They all... You see, I'm dropping bits now. Where's it gone? What's there? I've got it. It's alright. Nothing damaged, only my pride. Alright. So, yeah. See, I took all the cords off these because they weren't the right cords. What the cords were bits of this, which is what you kind of call grebe cord, isn't it? So if you had a very early 706, this would be 8, because this is the cord that they used to have on them, on the handsets and everything. This grebe cord, and I've got a fair bit of it that I've took off. You see, I've got loads of it that I've taken off here, because it wasn't connected up right. In fact, it wasn't connected up at all, although it went into the handsets, into the receivers. It wasn't actually connected up to the receivers, so nothing was connected up. So basically, I've taken all the lamp bits off now and stripped them back to being the telephone parts, and now I've got to figure out what parts I need for them. The main thing is cords, which I'm planning to make. There is a company that makes cloth covered cord. They do it for vehicle wiring, but they make sort of 1mm cloth coloured wire. Basically, you buy on a roll, and then you get 4 strands and kind of plait it together, and that's how you make the cords for them. So we're going to be doing that at some point in the future, because what it costs to buy those cords these days is absolutely ridiculous. It's insane what people charge for those cords, and you can buy a massive great long roll of the stuff they make them out of on a wire for 30 quid, on a reel rather, for 30 quid. So we're going to be buying all that on a reel and making our own. Another thing about these phones that I think it was Dominic, or was it Jimmy, mentioned this earlier, is the dial label on this one. It's the only one that's got a dial, and it's got a picture of this lady on it. Can you see? Right. I know it's a very long shot, but does anybody recognise her? Because I've actually taken this out. I've had this dial apart to clean it up a bit and to get it moving again, because it was a bit sticky. And it's actually a proper photograph. It's a proper old photograph with that kind of orange peel effect on it that old photographs have. You know, that wrinkly orange peel feel to it when you touch it, which was common on very old photographs. So that's a proper photograph that somebody's cut and put in there at some point. And I'm just wondering who that is, if there's a story there. But the dial does work. It may be a little bit slow, the dial still. 1001. Yeah, it's just a tad slow. 1001. Might get away with it. So that is the candlesticks. So we've got 3 of them now in for restoration. They are more or less basically all there. I'm quite lucky in that I've got all the bits, although it's not wired up. I have got all the bits in the receiver. I've got the little diaphragm thing that you have to slide off, and always slide these off sideways very carefully. You do not want to bend them. And then there's the core of the receiver there, you see, with what remains of a cord tied onto it there. I'll take that out. So I've got to fit a new cord. It just fits. There's a terminal on the side there, and there's another one on the other side there. So I've just got to fit a new cord to that, and it's marked plus and minus on the sort of bell bit at the bottom as well. So I've got to let's say fit new cords to these. but they're all much of a muchness. Another thing that I need for 2 of them is the element to go in these receivers, right? Not to go in the receivers, in the transmitters, right? Which way am I going with this? That way, right? This element that goes in the transmitter. What is this? A number 13? Did they call this a 13? Yeah, 13C. This one is. These were also fitted to early 700s, 706s and stuff like that in the early days. So I assume they were in 300 series as well. If you've got any of these kicking around, anybody, I'm in need of a couple, so get in touch if you've got any to sell. But I am in need of a couple of these, because while this phone's got one that I've just taken this one out of, this one here, while this one's got one, the other 2 haven't. Because actually I put this one into this one came without it, but I did happen to have one that came with some 706 spares. So I managed to sort that one. But yeah, so there they are. If I do that, you can see them. Why didn't I think of that earlier? There you have it. The old candlesticks, 3 of them. So we're gradually sorting them out, and like I say, there's going to be a video about these candlesticks. Is going to come out quite soon, so you'll be able to find out all about them in a video that will be coming your way soon. Right, I'm just altering my cameras, ready for the next bit. Right. Wesley says he's got one of those transmitter inserts. You can have it. Thank you, Wesley. Brilliant. You're an absolute star. Dominic says I've got one in 1963 black Diacon 706. Yeah, that should probably have one. Although it's the one where the carbon is slightly gummed up. Yeah, I think they are going to be gummed up now. They're so old that I think there is going to be carbon problems with them. The question is, can we solve the carbon problem? I'm on the wonk now, aren't I? So it takes me ages to get this camera in the right place. Alright, is that any better? No. Is that any better? No. That's more like it, right? That's better. Look, I'm straight again now. So yeah, candlesticks. So it's been an interesting week. Like I say, this one I've had for a while. We've done videos and things about it before, and it's been on the live show, I think, before this one. But it's good that I've now got the other version that has actually got the dial fitted, and I've got a relatively unmolested telephone too, although it has got the 130 transmitter head on it. So it's brilliant. It's really good. So they're my candlesticks, my fleet of candlesticks. Like I say, I'm going to do a video about them soon, and we'll also put the other candlestick in as well. The fake one we'll stick in there as well. Right. Right, just bear with me a moment. We will be right back in just a moment. And we're back. That didn't take long, did it? It's alright. That's just a placer for the ads for people who watch it after the event. There will probably be an ad break there, you see. So, because, well, we have to put ads in these days. Right, I'm just setting my chat up again. Right, so there we go. We've got to the end of the chat there. I've cleared the desk. Crikey, that doesn't happen very often. Oh, look, it's clear. Look, that doesn't happen very often at all. Right, so that is the candlesticks and that. Hello to everybody that's joining us. There's a steady flow of people joining to watch tonight. So hello if you've just joined us. Welcome to Andy's Shed Live. As I said at the beginning of the show, if you want to get in touch with us for any reason, if you've not got my email address and you want to get in touch, then the way to do it is go to our website, which is here, andyshed.coldpress.net, and click on the Contact Us form on there. I don't give the email address out on here because if I do, I get loads of spam from these spam bots and things. So that's the way to do it. Go to the website there and you'll find a Contact Us form. If you click on the thing that says Contact Us on the menu, you'll find a form. Just fill that in. That then pings me a secret email and then I can email you back and then you will have my email address there when I reply to you. So that's how that works on there. And as I said earlier, if you want to support the show, then you can by going to Patreon. Patreon.com/Andy's Shed is the way to do it. You can sign up for just a quid a month and support the show, and it helps us do more things like this. And there is going to be some Patreon exclusive content coming out very soon as well. In fact, it's already started this week. There's been some blog posts and things this week, and it's going to ramp up as time goes by. Right, what's next? Yes, events. You may know that tomorrow is the 12th of April. No kidding. Where's that gone since Christmas? It's just gone whoosh like that since Christmas. It's the 12th of April tomorrow, and things are starting to open up again. And with the knowledge that things are opening up, there are going to be one or two special events on, all being well, this summer that we are going to be at. You can come along and see me, and also I'll be there with some of the phones that you see on the shows as well. So if you want to see at least part of the phone collection, there's a couple of events in late June, early July around the Sheffield area that you might be interested in, and they are as follows. On Saturday and Sunday, the 26th and 27th of June, we will be at Sheffield Steam Rally at Northampton near Dinnington, which is actually just outside of Sheffield. It's near the M1, it's just the opposite side of the M1 motorway to what the city of Sheffield actually is. So if you're going up or down the M1, it's really well placed for getting to from the M1, Sheffield Steam Rally. It takes place, as I say, 26th and 27th of June on all day. That's a Saturday and a Sunday. We will be there, right inside the entrance as you go in. The first thing you'll see will be us. We'll be there with part of the Sheffield Collectors Club display. I'm a part of that, and we'll be there with old telephones, old Singer sewing machines, Mammoth steam engines, model Mammoth steam engines, all kinds of stuff like that, taken along by members of the Sheffield Collectors Club. So that's a date for your diary, 26th and 27th of June, and it's all outdoors as well, so you can stay nice and socially distanced and all that sort of thing too. Another outdoor event is the following weekend, Sunday the 4th of July. That's the Sheffield Model Engineers summer event. Now, although it's a 2-day event, it's only open to club members and that, I believe, on the Saturday. But on the Sunday, it's open to the public, so you can get in on the Sunday. It's right opposite Door Station in the suburbs of Sheffield. So if you're going by train, get to Door Station, and it's pretty much opposite, just across the road there, just a little track to walk up. And it's basically, the site is a miniature railway, and it's quite a big miniature railway, sort of 5-inch gauge and 7.25-inch gauge and stuff like that. A really good event that, normally. So obviously we didn't have it last year because of the virus and things, but before that we've been to it pretty much every year. Well worth a visit. So that's a Sheffield Model Engineers summer event on Sunday the 4th of July. You'll be able to see us there too, so get along to either of those. We'll be giving you more details about both of them a bit nearer the time. How cool is that? Right, I don't know if my chat stopped here. It's looks like it may have frozen on my chat, but I'll keep going anyway. Right, so done that. Told you about those. Told you about the Candlestick phones. Told you about the events. What else have we been doing this week? We've not had much. It has frozen, hasn't it? And we are back. I hope. Oh, at least I hope we're back. Anyway, yeah. Sorry about that. The stream just dobbed out there for a moment, but it's coming back. And here we are. Yeah. It all fell apart there just for a minute, but we're making it back now. Yes, Wesley. It was a reboot time. Dominic says it's up for me. Oh, amazing. Yeah, I don't know what quite happened there. It didn't sort of break down like it normally breaks down. It did something different there today. But yeah, I just noticed the chat had stopped. The chat had stopped moving at my end, so that made me think there was something awry going on. Right, so there you have it. So that's all what's been happening this week. We are getting somewhere. Do you remember the very grotty green phone that I had on a couple of weeks ago? The green 706 clone. It's not an Ericsson one. It's made by somebody else, but it is nonetheless a 706 clone. Well, we've been doing some experiments and things with that, and it's here. And look, it's green and it's shiny. Hey, but it's not a brilliant finish on it as yet, as you'll probably be able to tell when you get it a bit closer up. But yeah, we've done the dial as well. Dial moves at a reasonable speed. Now, in fact, it might be a little bit too fast. That 1001. Yeah, 1001. Yeah, it's a little bit fast, that, but we can adjust that. But basically what I did with this, I painted it with acetone. I got most of the browniness off it. I don't know if you can still see, there is a bit of browniness still on it, sort of up there, and that it doesn't show up very well on the camera. But most of the discolouring I got off it using a combination of acetone and sandpaper. Used both methods and got most of it off, and then it was very dull. So what I then did, I got a cotton bud, a clean cotton bud soaked in acetone, and just painted it all over with it, and it's made it nice and shiny. The trouble is, it has got streaks in it where it kind of melted the surface with the acetone. It has got sort of microscopic streaks in it, which you can probably see if I get it in the right light. So I need to get rid of those. Now I reckon if I had sprayed this acetone on, or if I'd done what we talked about, was it last week that we talked about acetone vapor being able to polish things, I reckon it might have worked without the streaks. So I still need to do a bit more work on it because there is still some discoloration in the plastic. I've not got all of it out, so there is still some discoloration, but the idea's there. Then I think I'll redo it and, you know, a bit more sandpaper and that, get some more of the discoloration off the surface of the plastic, and then I think we'll do it with acetone vapor and it should come out nice and shiny. So we are getting there. Penfold says nice job. Yeah, it's not bad, Penfold. It could be better though. I will say it could be better. It's not. It may look better on the camera than it actually is. So yeah. So that's another one that's happening for us. Another one of those grotty phones. If you've watched the video that I put up a while ago about the grottiest phones ever being unboxed, one of the phones that was part of that unboxing was an Ivory 746. It's had a bath today, and this is that same phone. It's had it. I basically took it all apart. Is that the same one? Yes. So clean now I don't recognise it, you see. I took it all apart and bathed all the plastic bits. So I took the case off, basically. I took the handset apart, took the elements out of the handset. I also took the handset cord off, cleaned all the handset cord up in soapy water, and then what I did with the handset cord was I reversed the twist in it to make it all nice and tight again. And that's not bad now. There is a little bit of discolouring on it with age, but I've seen worse. And if you watch that video of what they were like when they came in, that unboxing video, they were just absolutely ditched. So it is now way, way, way better than it was. So that's that one. Put that one back. Yeah, they were absolutely filthy when they came in. It was unbelievable how filthy they were. Yep. I'm dropping things. Yeah, it was absolutely filthy. But it's better now. Yeah, Penfold, it's a work in progress. Wesley said, I did a two-tone grey trim phone this week, which was truly awful. I started off with 80 grit sandpaper, working down to 1500 grit, followed by a machine polish. Looks great considering how it started. What did you polish it with, Wesley? Did you polish it with a slow speed buffing machine? Is that what you do? Well, the thing is with buffing machines, you have to be very careful what you polish them with, because if you like put a buffing wheel on a bench grinder, it goes too fast and it will actually melt the plastic. It will actually build up so much heat it will melt the plastic. So you really do need a buffing machine as opposed to a bench grinder. A buffing wheel on a bench grinder won't do it. KMM2913 is here. Says that's what I did on my Facebook page. Vintage Telephone GPO Workshop. Cool. Sorry, I'm reading. I can't talk and read at the same time. I just can't do it. I don't know why. It's like rubbing your stomach and patting your head at the same time. It's so hard to do. So yeah. So Wes been doing restorations. KMM, I think that's Kieran. He's been doing some restorations as well. So everybody's been doing restorations this week and that. So yeah, cool. Yeah. If you've done any restorations, you got the email address, send us some photos and we'll put them on the show next week. If you've not got the email address, as I said earlier, you can get the email address by dropping me a line through the contact form on the website, andyshed.coldpress.net. Drop us a line through the contact form on there, get the email address, and then you can email me photos and we'll stick them on the show next week. Well, he says, his buffer's not that slow, he said. You need to keep it moving though, and the diameter of the mop is quite important. So do you need a small mop so the mop doesn't run at too high a speed and sort of burn the surface of the phone? KKM says, yes, it's me, it's Kieran. Yeah, thought it was you. I recognised the sort of Krypton Factor icon thing in the chat. That is the Krypton Factor logo, isn't it? Have I remembered that right from years ago? That's the Krypton Factor logo. Right, we are getting there today. What else have I got to tell you today? The CB phone, the CB706. We've still not actually got terribly far with that. It's still here. It's still looking fairly scruffy, actually. The CB phone. It's not bad though. I did get sort of dead spiders and things out of it, but dial's still a little bit slow on that. That wants speeding up a bit. 1001. Yep, that one's speeding up a bit. But other than that, it's sort of getting there. It will then also want conversion doing. There's various things missing on there, you see. But we're going to be taking the dial off this, hopefully, and converting it back to a CB phone. What I don't know, and what I'm not sure there's any way of knowing, is what colour it was originally. Because when these phones go back to the GPO works, which you can normally tell because they've got either a yellow or a red sticker on them, like that one, that says, that particular one says it went back to the works in 1977. When they go back to the works, you don't know how much work's been done on them, how much they've been changed, whether they've been completely rebodied. I mean, it could have been a black phone, it could have been a red phone, it could have been any colour at all. And end up, I believe it ended up, after it had been in the works, as an ivory phone. Because it had got an ivory handset on it. But that's the only way we know. But whether it was an ivory phone originally or not, when it was a CB, we don't know. So being as we just don't know, we're probably going to do it as an ivory CB because that's what it was later on. So it could have been an ivory one. They just stuck a dial on and not changed the case, and otherwise we just don't know. It will be a total shot in the dark. So we're going to do it as an ivory one, but I do need a dial blank, an ivory dial blank. I don't think I've got one. I have to go through my bits and pieces. I don't think I've got an ivory dial blank, but it will be interesting to do that back as a CB because you don't see many central battery phones around. Wesley says, I've got a grey dial blank if you want to do it grey. I'll bear that in mind, Wesley, but I'm going to have a look for an ivory one first, thanks, and see if I can find an ivory one. Because we know the phone has been ivory at least some point in its life. We don't know if it was ever grey or not. Like, we don't know if it was ever any other colour. But this is where the history thing, where you really can't discover the history, because the problem with them is they are so interchangeable. Everything is so interchangeable, and of course with the GPO refurbishing things and that, you really can't work out the history a lot of the time, not reliably. Fat Hobbit says he's got to sign off now. He says thanks for another great show. Bye everyone. Bye Fat Hobbit. See you next time. Bye. Dominic says, has anyone seen the rather unusual anniversary 1970 GPO refurbished 706 with a dial 12 and black blank dial bezel? Must have been one of the last users for the dial 12. What? Rather unusual anniversary 1970 GPO refurbished 706 with a dial 12 and black blank dial surround. Must have been one of the last users for the dial 12. What colour is the rest of it then, Dominic? No, I've not seen it. Tell us more. Tell us more about it, Dominic. There's a bit of a delay, so I've got to wait for 30 seconds before you'll hear me say tell us more. But yeah, tell us more about that, Dominic. Who says that is what you're saying it is? Who's told you it's a special issue thing from 1970? Because the reason I asked that question is there is a big problem with people saying, oh, this is a special issue, that's this, that or the other, they only made 10 or they only made 50 of them and that, and often it's just not the case. You know, there's a thing with Jubilee trim phones where I upset somebody who'd got one because he said it was a prototype. He said he'd got the only one. I said, well, that's funny because they pop up quite regularly on eBay. Because STC made a Queen Silver Jubilee version of the trim phone, and it was a test for the GPO, or whatever you want to call them at that stage. They weren't. I don't think they were quite telecom by then, were they? They were still the GPO at that stage. And the GPO went with the compact phone that they'd had on trials in the early 70s, and they refurbished them in the end into their special Silver Jubilee phones, and you've seen them in that really dark blue colour. But there was a point where STC hoped the GPO was going to use as its Jubilee phone the trim phone, and they made some trim phones with the sort of Queen's coat of arms and stuff on them, and they looked quite nice. But the GPO didn't run with it. But I believe STC made enough that they gave them to their staff. So they do pop up, both push button and dial versions I think pop up relatively regularly. They've kind of got a light grey, almost white body, a dark bluish handset, and the button ones have got dark blue buttons on. Dominic says this anniversary 706 from 1970, it's all black with the sticker on the base saying something like Post Office 1870 to 1970, and an FWR sticker too, so it looks genuine. It's a bit like the rare red fire station wall phones. It'd be very easy to fake that, Dominic, wouldn't it? If that's what it is, it would be a very easy one to fake. I don't know if this link will work, but it's on eBay now. Yeah. Doesn't sound right to me, that doesn't. Penfold says the only phone he knows that's a special edition like that is a 776 Silver Jubilee phone. Yep, I'm going to go with you on that, Penfold. I don't know of this one that Dominic's talking about. The link hasn't come through, Dominic. Shall we go to eBay and see if we can find it? Let's have a little look and see if I can find it. Now this is where, oh hang on, this this is where it might all go a bit wrong. Right, so let's have a look. Right, we're having a look now, see if we can find it. Oh, it's making the stream stutter. Right, I'm looking for it, Dominic. I'm looking for it. I put in the 706 anniversary phone and can't find it. It's on Steve's house clearances in it, is it? Right. Right, we're looking now. We're looking for it. Can we find it? Right, still can't find it. It's well hidden. That's it. PO Factory Centenary. Right, I found it. 1870 to 1970, chrome dial. Right, so here it is. Right, can I show you this? Screen capture. Right, if I do that and then that, now you should be able to see it now. Hopefully, what I can see. So let's have a look at it. Right, that is a dial 12, definitely. That's on there. Yeah, let's get the picture bigger. Here's a dial 12. It's got the GPO thing here. See, the first thing that's suspicious about that is it's not got a dial label in it. I'm going through all the photos now. So it's a 706F, yeah. That's on left UR 71, yeah. Well, the PO Factory's label does look proper on that. The PO Factory Centenary 1870 to 1970. That does look genuine. What's happened to that phone underneath? It's on a plastic base. What the heck has happened to that plastic base? Looks like Freddy Krueger's run his fingers down it or something. Yeah, that label looks right to me. I'm interested in what's covered up. There though, you can see 706 something covered up. So it's been refurbished in 1970, obviously. So it could be right, but I've not heard of this being done as an anniversary phone in 1970. I've not heard about this happening. It looks like the dial is deep enough to be correct. So maybe they did do it and use up some dial 12s. It certainly looks right, Dominic. Wesley says perhaps the sticker is right. Hang on, let me get my stream back. Wesley says perhaps the sticker is genuine, but not to signify a special, just the anniversary, and the dial has been fitted at some point in the following 50 years. And Dominic thinks that sounds likely. Yeah, I think that probably is quite likely. I don't know. What is suspicious about that, I mean, Steve's house clearance, I think I've bought stuff off his site before. What is suspicious to me about it is there's no dial label in it. If you were going to do an anniversary phone, and if that was the right dial, wouldn't it have a dial label in it? If that had just been in somebody's house since 1970, and Steve's house clearance has cleared somebody's house, if that had just been in some granny's house who passed away and he'd gone and cleared the house out, that would have had a dial label in, wouldn't it? And it's not got a dial label in. Steve's house clearances are house clearance people. They're not going to mess about taking dial labels and things out. So I don't know. Benville says the dial looks very new on it, and the dial does look very new on it. That is very true. So I don't know. The label looks right underneath. Certainly the label looks right under it. But I'm not sure about the dial. I mean, obviously it's a dial 12, so it's going to have a pre-1970 date on it, that is. So you've got no way of being able to tell if that dial is original to that phone or not. The only way you tell a dial is not original is if the phone's got a 1970 date and then the dial's got like a 1980 date, but being on the dial 12, it's not going to have a 1980 date, is it? It looks like it may be something that's not been issued, because it's got the correct line code on it and the correct black box on the end of the line code as well. That's how they came out of the factory with all that on. So it could be, and the fact it's not got a dial label in it, it could be right, it could be genuine, and it could be that it's just not been issued, and it was grabbed by an old GPO employee or something like that. Because Penfold says the dial looks very new, or at least very clean and that, and it does. So I'm thinking that phone's not been issued. I think that's gone back to the factory, come out as especially in 1970 and not been issued. If I had to decide, is it right or is it not, I would go with yes, it's right. I think I would go with yes, it's right, because I don't think it's been issued. In 1970, I think it's been done and then not issued. Then somebody have found it in a stock room or something somewhere, maybe years later. So I think it's right. Yeah, I think it's right. Now, would I pay 50 quid for it? Probably not, to be quite honest. But there you go. But I do think it's probably right. It's not listed wrong or anything like that. I think that is probably straight up. At the very least, it's a nice example of a 706, isn't it? At the very least. But as you say, Dominic, it is very late for a dial 12 to be issued on a phone, if indeed it was. But remember, conversation pieces did those things in the late 70s, early 80s, those candlesticks and that, and I believe they used dial 12s on them as well. When the GPO did their own candlestick, those ones had a dial 21, but I think conversation pieces used dial 12s on theirs. So dial 12s were certainly still around, and bear in mind it's a piece of kit that is GPO. It's been passed as up to spec by the GPO with dial 12, so you can still use it, kind of thing. Dominic says, say it was installed, then that would mean there would be some dial 12s in service into the 80s possibly. Yeah, I'm sure there were. I'm sure there were. I'm sure there were dial 12s in service into the 90s. Penfold says, if it's not been issued, why is the bottom scuffed up? Good question. Why is the bottom scuffed up though if it has been issued? How does that happen? It's a good question. I don't know. There's a lot of questions about that, but that sticker does look right underneath it. It's kind of almost worth it just for the sticker, even if the dial is wrong. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Why does it say they cannibalised original phones to make those? The only new parts were reproduction parts. Cannibalised what to make what, Wesley? The candlesticks. I'm not sure they did actually cannibalise phones to make those candlesticks, Wesley. I think they were made using new parts and some old parts that they'd found in stock. I believe those conversation pieces ones. I think they used new bits. They did lots of wooden phones. They did various things, conversation pieces. They did lots of wooden phones as well, and they do still turn up quite regularly. And I believe they used some original parts in them, and then some new bits as well. That's what I'm told, anyway. Don't take it as gospel. Do your own research, and if you find anything out, let us know. So yeah. Penfold says the rubber feet are very flat on that phone. Yeah, I think that's how they are though. Those feet. Dominic says, suppose the scuffing could come from the 706's pre-refurbishment days. Could have gone back to the factory because it was damaged in service. Could have, possibly. I wouldn't have thought they would have put a base out though that was scuffed up like that. If that had happened in service and it had gone back to the factory, I would have expected them to change that. I wouldn't have thought that would have gone back out like that. Where it said they did. I'll see if I can dig out the article I read about them. I'm sure it was Malcolm Percival from Telephone Lines in Cheltenham. I think you might be right. But what did they actually do then, Wesley? Did they cannibalise 300 series to use the dials to make candlesticks or something like that? Is that what they did? Because I can imagine them taking dial 12s off 300 series phones to make candlesticks in the 1970s. Because you have to remember, in the 1970s, 300 series phones were 10 a penny. There were skips full of them. So I can imagine that happening. But yeah, I haven't got any of these conversation pieces phones. Maybe I should, because although I regard them as fakes, maybe they're not entirely fakes. So, they're kind of part of history. So maybe I should get one. But I haven't got any here at the minute. Well, he says he thinks that's what they did. Yeah. Penfold says he likes the leather-covered phones. Yes, Penfold, and they are genuine as well, the leather-covered ones. What they call them, Delta phones or something, don't they? The leather-covered trim phones and the leather-covered... What else did they do it with besides trim phones? Did they do it with contemporaries? Did they do a leather-coloured contemporary? They did something else besides trim phones. What did they do that they put the leather on? It's famously done on trim phones, but they did it on something else as well. But yeah, they used to come up quite regularly. Again, those leather-covered trim phones used to come up quite regularly. I never really bothered getting one because the leather's normally sort of scratched up on them. But now they seem to be getting quite rare. But for a while they were coming up quite regular. I wonder if somebody had a supply of them. But yeah, the leather-covered trim phones. Yeah, all part of the trim phone. There are quite a few variations of the trim phone that I've not got. I've not got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. I've not got a 12-button trim phone. DTMF one. I've not got one of those yet, because they fetch silly money. They do, because for some reason people want them because they work DTMF. But yeah, so I've not managed to get hold of one of those yet, but we're working on it. Whereas it says part of the TSR range, those leather covered ones. Yeah, I think they probably were, Wesley. It's certainly around about the right time. What did they do? What did they stick leather on as well as trim phones though? Did they do like a leather covered Viscount or something like that? Did it go into the next sort of era of phones? There was something else they stuck leather on as well as trim phones. I don't know what it was. It's bugging me now. Yeah, cool. Anyway, my sad CB phone is still here waiting for its body shell. I might get on with that this coming week. I might see what we can find out of the stocks there, out of the stocks of bits, and see if we can make a start on that, because it does look a bit sad like that, doesn't it? Yeah. I'll put that one back where it was for a moment. I've got plenty to do, so I've got plenty to do. Oh, and there's another butt set in the post as well. Those rubber butt set phones. Those I can't remember what the actual model number is on them. Are they 250s? No. The sort of rubber cover, the black rubber covered butt sets with a tiny dial in them, and that. For some reason, I've got quite a lot of those now. Nobody seems to want to buy those. I put like a silly bid on eBay and always seem to win them. Wesley says the Rhapsody. The Rhapsody is what they stuck leather on. Jimmy says, Andy and everyone got to go. See you all next week. Bye, Jimmy. Jimmy's off. Yeah, the Rhapsody. I'm now trying to think what a Rhapsody was. You're getting a bit modern for me there, Wesley, with the Rhapsody. It's a bit out of my era sort of thing. I sort of stop at the end of the 700s, and I go slightly into the world of contemporaries. Oh, there's a contemporary in the post as well, another contemporary coming. Shall we see if it's got damaged bodywork? Because they've nearly always got damaged bodywork contemporaries, but there is another one on its way. Right, I'm just catching up on the chat. Dominic says, I like the Phoenix phone range colours. I know you don't like the turquoise one, but I think it looks very close to the jade green colour of 300-200 series phones. Yeah, I suppose. I don't particularly dislike it. I'm just always amazed at the amount of money it fetches when one pops up on an auction or anything. Wesley says that the Rhapsody was like a wedge-shaped one, the Viscount era. I think I know what you mean. It had fairly biggish square buttons on it. I think we had one. I think it's what they replaced our Red 700 series with when they put plugs and sockets in. What a shame! They replaced the Red 700 series with one of those. But ours didn't have leather on. We were not Mrs. Bouquet. Mrs. Bouquet would have had one with leather on, wouldn't she? Yeah, the leather coloured trim phones are quite good. And the other one that's interesting is that executive phone in a box thing that was part of the special range. What that you had on your desk, it was like a cigar box you had on your desk. You opened the box and inside it was a telephone. That's another interesting thing. That'd be an interesting one to get one of. They had them in America as well. But they did come over here, they did. I don't know if the ones over here were slightly different, but they did certainly have them in America as well. But yeah, the special range phones, including Mickey Mouse and all that lot, are a thing of their own. Very variable quality, those special range phones from around about that time. Very, very variable. The one that is most amazing to me is the Ambassador, because I have got one in the collection somewhere. It was on here. We did a show about it in the very early days of Andy Shed Live. But it was supposed to be the thing that kind of replaced the 700 series. They did a dial and a push button version. I've got the dial version in bright yellow, and the build quality of it is phenomenally good. Although it's mainly plastic, it's proper thick plastic. You know, it's built like a tank. It's like armour plated. Really, really good phone. Circuit board inside them is a bit dodgy though. The wiring on the circuit board, I had trouble with the wiring on the circuit board. I had to replace some wires. Dominic says, isn't that the pendant phone? The pendant phone is basically a handset and not much else. The pendant phone, that's what that is. It's generally a grey 700 series handset and just a little, not a plastic clip thing to screw to the wall to hook it onto, and the workings of it are inside a bell set generally. So it's almost going back to the Candlestick era type thing, the way a pendant phone works. And the dial is separate, and you mount the dial under your desk. I have made one up out of bits and got it working and wired it up. I have got one. We had it on a while ago. Again, another one I ought to get back out and show you again, because it's amazing. It was an amazing piece of wiring to get that going. There were lots of wires because everything's separate. The dial is separate from the bell box, is separate from the handset sort of thing. So there's wires going everywhere. But that's a pendant phone. Wesley says there was a phone called an Onyx and the Empress. Yeah, right. I don't know what the Empress was. The Onyx ones. There were various Onyx ones. Actually. Now, the Onyx telephones are a bit of a complex thing because there are lots of different designs of Onyx telephones, i.e. the ones that are made out of like a green, stony, glassy, marbly sort of stuff, i.e. Onyx. The GPO, or Telecom as I think it had become by then, certainly had at least one Onyx telephone in their range. Now you go to car boot sales and auctions and things, you find a lot. Some are genuine from this country, some have been imported from overseas and are not actually what were issued in this country, because whoever's making these Onyx phones obviously made them overseas somewhere and they were sold to other telephone operators in foreign countries. And it always amazes me how many foreign phones end up in this country, and I think some antiques dealers buy like container loads of phones and ship them over at times, because all of a sudden there'll be a massive glut of a particular type of phone that probably doesn't originate here. I'm waiting for a glut of Ericaphones. Dominic says, I've been looking for a dial ambassador for a while, although they seem to go for silly money now. Yeah, there was a grey one listed on eBay a few weeks back that went for silly money. I think the one that I bought, I think it was about 20 quid, the one that I bought, the yellow one, but it's 2 or 3 years now, maybe more since I bought that one. Yes, early days of British Telecom is when these special range phones came out. Things like Mickey Mouse and stuff like that. It was kind of the precursor to having to buy your phones, wasn't it? I think did you buy the special range phones, or could you rent them for a while? I think you could rent them for a while, and then it very soon became BT shops, or telecom shops as they were then, where you went in and bought whatever phone you wanted. And that's the point then where they started to sell phones where the quality of the phones went boom. Because at that stage, because telecoms it had become by then didn't have to maintain the phones anymore. When it went wrong, they didn't have to send an engineer out to your house anymore. It was, anything on your side of that modern socket was your problem. They started selling tat, basically, in those shops. Who remembers that little phone, that little handset thing that went in a little plastic clip, and normally they were red, that Tandy used to sell? Absolutely diabolical phone they are. You could like squeeze them like a Coke can, and you could deform them with one hand by squeezing them like a Coke can. Wesley says, I have a brown dial ambassador somewhere. It needs the acetone slurry repair though. A brown dial ambassador? I didn't know they did them in brown. Oh, yeah, it does need the acetone slurry repair. The question is, if it's a brown ambassador, what brown is it? Because we had this problem before with a Contempora. I don't know if any of you can remember. I had a Contempora on here one Sunday night that somebody obviously dropped something on it, and the back of the handset had got a big crack out of it. A big bit of the back of the handset was missing. Somebody dropped something heavy on it, it looked like, and broke a big section out the middle of the back of the handset. So I took it all apart, and I was about to do the acetone slurry thing. I thought, but it's chocolate brown. I thought, I haven't got any spare Contempora bits, to dissolve a bit in the acetone like I do, with the 700 series normally. I just use a spare dial bezel or something like that, you know, and dissolve it in the acetone to make the slurry to patch the holes and things. But I haven't got any contemporary bits, and I thought, well, the only thing I can think of is a Yeoman, you know, an 8746, the brown one. And somebody, it may be somebody who's on here tonight. If it is, my apologies, I can't remember who it was. But somebody had bought a Yeoman on eBay, and it had arrived in 1,000,000 pieces in the post, as things often do. And so he sent me the bits of the original case. He was going to recase it. He was going to get a new case to put on it. And so he sent me the broken bits of the original case. It really was properly broken. It was literally in 1,000 pieces. And I used a bit of that and dissolved that in the acetone, and it looked pretty much right. But when you'd done it and I'd put it under Contempora and I'd polish it all up, it was just one kind of tone different to the Contempora. Why they had to go a slightly different colour with it, I do not know, but it was just like one tone in the brown different, and I don't think it was due to the Contempora getting a suntan with the ABS. I don't think it was due to that, because where I was working on it, you know, the acetone would have got on it and would have washed that off, that surface layer. But no matter how much I sanded it and that, there was a slight colour difference. So the brown Contemporas are not the same brown as the HM46s, the Yeomans are. They look it, but they're not quite the same colour. So I'm wondering what colour a brown Ambassador is. If that is one of those, or if it is something else again. Penfold says, Tandy, there's a blast from the past. Wesley says, this brown Ambassador looks very much the same as the Yeoman or brown trim phone. Yeah, I think the brown trim phone's a different colour again. I think that's slightly lighter, the brown trim phone. Dominic says, post GPO, did the short-lived Mercury Communications supply any equipment to use with their cards to customers? No, I don't think so. Did you not dial something to use Mercury? No, they didn't. Mercury, as far as I know, didn't supply any equipment to customers. What Mercury did do, they had their own phone boxes. So they obviously had their own phones in phone boxes. Because one of the things about Mercury Communications, although it was a new company, it used equipment that was fairly old technology, and although their phone boxes were push button phone boxes, their system accepted pulse dialing. So I didn't do this at the time. I didn't know enough about it to try it, otherwise I might have tried it, but I'm told that with a Mercury Communications phone box you could pick the handset up, and your money activated the dial on a Mercury phone box, or the keypad rather. You put in your money and activated the keypad, but you could make a call on Mercury by tapping the hook switches, and of course then you didn't need the keypad, and then it would work by pulse dialing, and you could actually activate the exchange and activate the line, and you could make a call from a Mercury phone box by tapping the hook switches in the phone box. I'm told that worked by an ex-engineer, and apparently it didn't work in a GPO phone box, but it did in a Mercury one, and apparently it was widely known by the users of phone boxes at the time. So yes, yeah, Dominic, yeah, Mercury did have their own phone booths. They were blue and silver. I believe there's one at the kiosk collection, the National Kiosk Collection. Where does it say things Mercury more aimed at business rather than residential? Possibly. I think you could have a Mercury line though, couldn't you? Didn't you have to dial something? So it charged Mercury and not... Because they came about, it was that Margaret Thatcher era when she was into competition and things, wasn't it? And a free market economy and all this kind of stuff, and that's how Mercury came about. Interesting, if you look in the right places, next time you walk down the road, look down, because there are still Mercury Communications manhole covers in the road in some places. But yeah, Mercury, those were the days. But if Mercury did a phone, I bet it'd be blue and silver. It'd be probably quite nice if it was Mercury. They were quite stylish. The kiosks were very, very good that Mercury had. They had a strange sort of Art Nouveau, swoopy, pointy roof kiosk at one stage. They were pretty good, Mercury. Dominic says he's noticed a lot of old Mercury covers around him. Yeah, they're still there. There's where have I seen them? I think there's a load in Sheffield. Because I don't think Mercury was available everywhere, was it? I know the centre of Chesterfield near me did have Mercury phone boxes in it, because I remember them appearing and going, oh, what are they? Because they were blue and silver. So they did have Mercury phone boxes in the centre of Chesterfield at one point. Now you are pushed to find a phone box at all, but they had GPO ones and they had Mercury ones in Chesterfield. Wesley says, if I remember correctly, Mercury were part of Cable and Wireless, which was originally the overseas arm of the post office, so not a lot different to BT. Yeah, I think they were part of Cable and Wireless. But why would Cable and Wireless not been sold to an American company or something? I'm not sure. You're testing the old brain matter, old grey matter now. But yeah, it's interesting. I wonder what Mercury equipment survives. Every now and again, you do see somebody selling an old payphone, but it's never a Mercury one, is it? Have you noticed that? Yeah, that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it? I know one or two people who've got phone box in the garden. If you've got very deep pockets, you can still buy a red phone box for about £2,000. And there's one or two people who've got phone box in the garden. In fact, there's one person who lives near a relative of mine. He's got a very good one in his front garden. It all lights up properly and everything, and it's got a phone in it, and he's got a mannequin out of a shop to stand in the phone box on the phone. It's all lit up at night. It's brilliant. Next time I go there, I'll take a picture of it. But wouldn't it be good to have a Mercury phone box in your front garden? That would be cool. That would be different. You'd probably be the only one. Whereas it says there's never been anybody other than the GPO, Post Office, BT out here in the sticks. No, I think Mercury... Was Mercury not... I think Mercury was one of the first people to use fibre optic cables in this country as well, weren't they? Am I remembering this right? Didn't Mercury have their own system, their own cables and things? Or did they use the GPO's cables? I can't remember. I don't know. I know they certainly had their own phone boxes, Mercury. It was a big thing when they appeared in the middle of Chesterfield. I remember it happening. But yeah, Mercury Communications. Those were the days. I might have to go on a quest now to find some old Mercury stuff. Yeah, that'd be good. Another interesting one from days gone by that is no more a thing, at least I don't think it's a thing anymore, is Rabbit. Can anybody remember Rabbit? the kind of mobile phones before you had mobile phones, and how rabbit worked. It was a bit like Wi-Fi. You had this phone, but it had to be within range of a rabbit sort of area, and like shops had these rabbit transceivers in them, so you could go in the shop and use your rabbit phone, but when you got home your rabbit phone didn't work anymore. Can anybody remember rabbit? If you look outside shops, you know these little shops that have not changed, little newsagents that haven't changed in 50 years sort of thing. Look above those shops and you can sometimes still see a very faded rabbit sign above them. Wesley says, Mercury ran a big ring of fibre initially, but there was no national competition in the local loop. Right, I see. I'm learning a lot here. I didn't know much of anything about Mercury, to be honest with you, other than the fact they were blue and silver. I'll have to see if I can find something out about Mercury and find out what they had and stuff. There were certainly phones with Mercury buttons, weren't there? You could have a phone with a Mercury button, I believe, with an M button on it, M for Mercury, and you could press the M button and it went out on Mercury. So I think Mercury did do phones, because they did these phones with this Mercury button on them, I think. Now, if I remembered that right, you could have a home phone with a Mercury button. I'll have to do some research into this. You've got me wondering now. I will do some research, and I'll get back to you on the Mercury thing. Just remind me next week, and we'll get back into the Mercury thing again. Dominic says they seem to be a bit of flash in the pan, Mercury. Yeah, I think they were. I think that's a fairly good way of describing it. I don't know what happened to them. If they just couldn't compete, but probably being able to use their phone boxes without actually putting any money in didn't help. Wesley says it's a national monopoly where there's only so much room for ducks and poles, etc. Yeah, I guess that's true actually. Dominic says he's heard about the Mercury button, but he's never seen one. Right, we'll have to find one, won't we, Dominic? I've not got one. I've not got a phone with a Mercury button, but I'm sure we can probably find one. Must still exist. There must still be some phones out there with Mercury buttons on. If anybody has got a phone with a Mercury button on out there, get in touch or send us a photo. We'd like to see the phone with the Mercury button. Wesley says that's carrier pre-selection. The button would have pre-dialed a code which routed you onto Mercury's network. Yeah, Wesley, I think that's spot on. I think that's what it did. Because if your phone hadn't got a Mercury button on it, I think there was a code you could dial to use Mercury. You know, if you were a Mercury subscriber, you could have a phone that was a normal GPO phone kind of thing, but you could tap a code in and your call then went through Mercury, and you will billed the Mercury rate by Mercury. I don't entirely know how it worked, but what you've just said there, Wesley, that sounds absolutely spot on. And that Mercury button would have just, as far as I know, all Mercury's stuff was DTMF. It was all push button, so it would have just done 2 or 3 tones, wouldn't it? And you'd have gone out on Mercury. But yeah, carrier pre-selection. I think that's exactly what they did. Right. Anyway, folks, it is rapidly approaching 8 o'clock, and I'm about to turn back into a pumpkin. So I think we might have to call it a day for this week. Thanks to everybody who has taken part in the show. Quick reminder once again before we finish, at the end of this show you will see who our patrons are. You will see their names come up. If you also want to support the channel and help us do more, I'm hoping that we can eventually do a midweek regular thing as well as this Sunday one. But if you'd like to help us out, then remember to go to our patreon.com and shed there, and for just like £1 a month you can really make a difference and let us make more content than we do at the moment. Because remember, it's not just us here with this. We do the escape the shed things, and there's going to be more of those coming out soon as well. So there's going to be all sorts here on the channel over the next few weeks. But for tonight, that is as far as we go. Thanks to everybody who's taken part in the chat there today. Too numerous to mention, but thanks to everybody there. Thanks to everybody for watching who's not taken part in the chat, because I'm well aware there's some people who sort of just sit back and watch, and that's totally fine. You're totally fine. We'll see you all again next week. In the meantime, I'm going to go and see if I can find a Mercury button. But for me, for now, see you soon.